means, but I do know that it's 8 o'clock and it's great to see all of you at the intersection. And I can't remember like who to who or what to what, but I got rave reviews this last week about the intersection. And this is not like new, but this is one of the results of the intersection is that major connections happen at the intersection beyond this screen. So there was one among us who got a couple phone calls from people he had never met before, but we were on the screen together, and it was like this work that's happening. We want to be a part of that, and we can help with that. And so we just need to keep in mind um, this amazing benefits package that we share in this kind of community work. And it's valuable, valuable, wonderful relationships. And I can go around the screen with each of the icons and say that that's probably the best part of the benefits package. But we learn together, we grow together, we connect the work so it moves stronger and deeper and hopefully more efficiently and effectively as well. And more awareness. It's all those important things that community does, and we share the weight together. But it's the relationships. I think it was my dear friend Keith Weidman, who's here on the screen with us, who always says something like, "The work moves as quickly as the." I should have Keith say it. Keith, what do you say?
Um, Change happens at the speed of relationship.
There you go. See, he said it so much better than I was saying it. Yeah. So Elizabeth is back with us. We're looking at the fourth video in their series of resourcing and helping our community learn and grow and connect. We're going to take a couple minutes for announcements. And we have a request of the intersection of relationships as well. So the one event I'm going to mention again to put two events to put on your calendars, and I've been sending it out in the weekly news and calendaring that comes out every Tuesday. But on June the 5th, it's a Thursday in the evening at Oblate, the Whitley Center, will be the second annual Interfaith Summit. There's going to be a panel this year, a younger panel, on compassion as the antidote to nationalism. And Mayor Nuremberg will be facilitating that panel. So just take note when you see that come out. We've already have over 90 people have registered, but we should have hundreds. I think it's going to be a very exciting but powerful event. I think it's one of his strongest skill sets is facilitating communication like that. If you've never seen it, it's something to watch. The other date I encourage you to put on your calendar is Wednesday, June 18th. And it's a piece of history here in San Antonio that for any new mayor and council, they are blessed in the cathedral by interfaith leaders, multi-faith leaders. That's at 3 o'clock Wednesday afternoon, June 18. And I encourage you to be there. It's open to the public. I can't think of any better way to have it's right before the swearing in that follows the blessing. So to have the strength of our community show up to our new mayor and council can only strengthen us. So I encourage both of those. And the request that we have today comes from Sam and Karen. They're looking for a location. So listen carefully to the details because it might not be a location that you're in, although it might be, but it also might be a matter of knowing of a location that might help them. So I don't know, Karen, Sam, which one of you is going to talk to the No Mas conference in your need? There he comes.
You want to do that, Karen? Tell them what we're looking for.
There was a beautiful write-up that Patricia had done yesterday for this. Let me see if I can call that up. So
They're
okay.
fighting over this, right? They have this.
Yes.
They have this dire need, right?
We do. Okay.
Paul, don't laugh too hard, Paul.
So I will start us off. Sam, you pick up anything that I drop off. Okay.
All
so
right.
the dates we're looking for are July 15th, that Tuesday evening, then into Saturday early afternoon, July 19th. So we're looking for that's about 4 days.
4 days.
And this is a partnership between local organizations that respond to how do we put an end to violence that we see in our families and in our community. And the name of the event is going to be No More, like Get to Know More, No Mas, which is the name of an organization that stands for National Organization of Men Against Sexism. And then no, as in none, no more domestic violence community training to end systemic violence. So we're looking for a venue that has a large auditorium that might be able to host about 150 to 250, but we're also looking for 5 breakout rooms so that we can have specific topics discussed. And then part of this is we have a number of international speakers coming in. Mark Wynn's coming in. Mark Charles is coming in. We have a play that's going to be done called What the Constitution Means to Me. We also have a segment that is going to be focused on youth. Sam, what do you want to add while I try and copy this, the guts of this to put onto?
Yeah, so it's going to be a 4-day event with the National Organization for Men Against Sexism. We did hold their 49th anniversary event last year down at the neighborhood place, but we're trying to find a different venue. We are bringing in a Broadway play by a woman who not only is a Broadway actress, but she shows up on a lot of different TV shows, as an extra. She's been doing this play called What the Constitution Means to Me for years, and it's been highly regarded and received a lot of rewards. We also have the staff from SEDA coming in. And what SEDA is, it's a Students Against Emotional Abuse and Dating Aggression. I mean, obviously, we all know who, Patricia Castillo is, right? I think when she started the Peace Initiative, not only was it about domestic violence, but it's also about teen violence. Teen violence is a huge problem here in San Antonio. When you got mothers and fathers who are constantly fighting and in their households, then it confined to their 4 walls, those behaviors tend to kind of latch on to their children, and then these teenage boys are handling these teenage girls as if their mothers, like their mothers are being handled. And it's a huge issue here in San Antonio when it comes to teen violence and teen sexual assault. So they're going to be coming in to talk about those issues. Like she said, we got Mark Wynn, and from what I understand, I think Mark Wynn has been here to San Antonio at one time or another. I think before I got to San Antonio Father Campaign back in 2018. And he's got a great story to tell because he grew up in a domestic violence situation, ended up becoming, an officer, and now he's, an author. He's written books and he's done documentaries on his life, and both looking at the side of being part of a domestic family and also being on the part of the law enforcement part of it and seeing how it's broken and how it doesn't work and the biases. I mean, he's going to talk about a lot of different things and even the court processes of domestic violence cases and abuse cases and what have you. So it's going to be a lot of stuff, and we're just needing. We'd love to have it all in one place, if possible, to have the breakout rooms in order to facilitate all these very uh, interesting topics we're going to talk about. And a lot of them are just going to be topics that need to be addressed, and we need to do something about it. We just can't keep just talking about how we're going to get it done. We just got to get it done. You
I
know.
also understand, and so I'm interjecting because of time as well. But I also understand part of the difficulty this planning team has been having is because of some of the things that have been happening nationally with DEI and funding.
Yeah.
Many of the places that they would normally be going, colleges and universities, are saying no to hosting this in their location. So that's kind of the bottom line. So if you could all be thinking of how bold you want to be in the world, right? And Sammy or Karen, if you can put just your contact information in chat. So if anybody has any ideas, please let them know. They would really appreciate it. They've been looking for quite some time now and just really struggling. So I want to introduce Elizabeth. We've met her before. And we're going to meet her again. But Elizabeth is with the Know Your Neighbor Project, changing the narrative in San Antonio, helping us all learn with the HEB Foundation. And again, we've been looking at the series of 4 videos and discussion guides that they have to be utilizing in our own settings. That's what they've produced them for, created them for, and they are creative. I'm sorry you weren't able to be with us last week, Elizabeth, but we got a lot of mileage out of that less than 2-minute video. It was a really good conversation. So I'm going to hand it over to you. And thank you for being with us this entire time. So it's all yours.
Good morning. It's good to be with you again. And some of you have met in other places. Some of you heard me the last time I was here. Thanks for giving me grace for last week. I had a hard week, and I'll be just vulnerable with you because I think this is a lovely group. I had to put my dog down of 13 years last Thursday morning, and it was really, really hard because he's been my buddy for a long time. So anyways, thanks for your grace for me not being able to be there, and for Anne taking it on. So I'm glad to be with you this week, and am also glad to have experienced a good week of healing, and look forward to more of that. It's amazing how those guys bury themselves in your souls. Anyways, it's good to be with you. And I am, like Anne said, I'm really grateful to get to share these resources with you. I arguably have one of the best job titles in the city of San Antonio. I'm called the director of storytelling, which is just an absolute joy to wake up every day with that title, but then also to get to do the work because I love this city deeply. It's formed me, and I really want to be part of forming it. And not just because of my lifetime, but for the people who will inherit the city going forward, right? And so sometimes for us, what that means is, yes, we celebrate the good, and there's not a city that knows how to party better than this one. And so I love celebrating all the good in the city, but it also means being really honest about the not so good. The parts of us that need repair. And so these resources exist to not just highlight that, but invite people to think critically about these issues, and then not just think critically on their own, but to then dialogue with other people about these issues, but not just dialogue with people who are like them, who agree with them, who have the same perspective, but to dialogue with people who are different, who have a different lived experience of San Antonio, who have a different vantage point of this same really beautiful, dynamic, diverse city. And so these resources are hopefully are just tools for folks to do that around these topics. Today, we're talking about the benefits cliff. I don't know if you have engaged, if you know what that issue is, if you've lived that, the majority of our city has lived this reality. So it's a true issue. And for some of you, y'all are working at the intersection of this reality on behalf and alongside of families. And so y'all could be teaching this. So I just hope then if you're in that camp, that this is just a tool and resource as you're out doing your day-to-day work. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this video again, very short. This is another one of our animated videos that's really short. And so I want to just own at the beginning that because it's this short, it doesn't cover the entire complexity of this issue. It leaves out a lot. And what it's really trying to do is to spark or prick consciences, to spark imagination, and be a beginning point for people to lean in with curiosity. So I'm going to play this, and then would love to talk about it. Let me do my share screen. Sorry. There we go.
Imagine one day you are offered a raise. Everything seems to be looking up, but for families hanging on by a thread, a small increase in income can mean losing important forms of support. What should be a great step forward can actually push them over the edge. This is called the benefits cliff. In Bexar County, Texas, the average household of 3 with both parents working brings in less than $60,000 a year. Meanwhile, to cover the basics, it costs over $78,000 a year. That's a gap of more than $18,000. And that means families face tough choices. Those with low enough incomes can still qualify for help to make ends meet. But as their income rises, key benefits get cut. And the extra income is not nearly enough to make up the cost of what's been lost. But it doesn't have to stay this way. Some organizations and communities are working to fix the problem. There are privately funded programs that give hardworking families additional cash grants each month. Also, some employers are reimagining employee offerings like childcare and transportation subsidies. We could also address the problem at a policy level by tapering off benefits gradually as a family's income increases. The benefits cliff was human-made. Together, we can build a better way.
Hey, thanks, y'all. I think I'm still playing videos somewhere, but I don't know where that is. Oh, y'all can hear it. Can y'all hear this video that's playing on my? You can? Okay, hold on. I don't know where it is.
It's the solar flare from earlier this
I'm
week.
telling you, I have no idea where this video is.
University. San Antonio is really interesting.
Right.
San Antonio is really
Just a
special.
second.
I think you must have gotten it because I don't hear it now.
There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, well, that's the benefits cliff video that we have, and I shared with y'all last time too. Every video that we have comes with a reflection guide. So we call this video "Surviving the City." So this reflection guide goes with it. The reflection guides are actually really meant for individual reflection. So they dive a little bit deeper into these issues. They come with we have some statistics here that help people understand this reality across various demographics. But these are really meant to say, okay, how does your story intersect with this story of San Antonio? Because at some level, all of our stories do with each of these issues. All of them at some point intersect, some more deeply than others. But the hope then is that as we realize and understand how those intersections happen, it activates us to be part of the change. That when we inherit the issue of the benefits cliff being experienced by any San Antonian, we inherit that, and is our responsibility to, on behalf of or with and alongside of our neighbors, relieve that tension. And so anyways, these are meant for people to do individual reflection and then to prompt discussion. So I can put into the chat and the links to all of these resources, if that would be helpful. And I'm also happy to answer questions.
I'm curious. I'm going to put us into gallery view here so that we can see all of our icon screens. How many folks were unaware of that income gap and what it does before seeing this video? How unaware, right? In that kind of detail. I mean, I knew it exists, but so we can see, you know, how important it is. And so I'm assuming that Sonia has her hand up, not just because I asked for that. Oh, she took it away. I thought maybe she had a question, but not.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't have a question. I was raising my hand that I wasn't aware.
Yeah. I want to invite, though, everybody, and I'll call on David, but to think about where and how you can use the video. That's really why we're watching it, besides learning ourselves and expanding that. But how can we utilize this one or any of the four in the work that we're doing? And, you know, how can then we move that together? I know that when Sacred's been having their monthly kind of user group gatherings, they've been looking at it as well, and people trying to figure out how it can be utilized in their congregation, organization, the team that they work with on a regular basis. So be thinking about the application of where this could be taken. So David, you have a question? Todd?
Yes. Good morning. You know what, Elizabeth, thank you for the video, because this situation is exactly what I face with my families. I'll have one of the family members that will retool themselves using programs like SA Ready to Work, and they've now inched from making $15, $16, $17, $18 an hour to about $22, $23 an hour. And their significant other is making that $15 an hour. And then they will start, you know, retooling and get to that point. And then all of a sudden, you know, one component of their subsidized benefit will, you know, stop. And then I get this, you know, these calls late at night, like, Dave, you know, hey, thanks for this and this and that. However, we're now facing these critical shortages, whether it's childcare. Most of them, you know, when I say most, I would say, you know, greater than out of the 74 families, I've got probably half of those, it's about childcare. So we have, you know, though we have childcare on site where I'm at, you know, we subsidize quite a bit of that because of those gaps that are there, that the families are sitting there saying, hey, you know, I may have to quit this new opportunity that I just came out of because we're losing these benefits. So I would be curious to hear from, you know, all of us here, what are some of those innovative solutions on how do we get them across that threshold to where they're starting to thrive and then be in a position where they continue to progress forward without having that worry of other benefits that are just going to start to tail off for them so that their families can actually start to thrive.
Well, and one of the hopes with this video is that employers watch it, because some people hiring managers watch this, that HR departments watch this, because a lot of times it's those folks who are unaware of the issues that many of their lower income, but not even some of the folks who are struggling with this are not they're above the poverty line. They're making what we see as good money to live in the city, and they're just under what's needed to help their family get across these thresholds. And so our hope too with this is that business owners watch it, put it in front of business owners. If you know business owners or hiring directors, because one of the things we talked about this with a gentleman who is an owner of a surgical center, and he was kind of mind blown, and he ended up, learning that a lot of their lower paid employees in their surgical center were struggling with this very thing. And they started to rethink all of their benefits packages as a privately owned business, and all of the ways that they support their employees, including loans, not just covering costs, but making it so people can, with dignity, pay that back if they want or need. And so there are ways that I think that on just the private sector, like that we can begin thinking, not just about our bottom line, but that ultimately, and there's all sorts of studies out there about this too. I wish I had links to them right now, of that if you're paying your employees a livable wage and reducing turnover, how much that really does in long-term impact your bottom line. And so there's an economic argument for this as well. There's a story, I want to put it in here. So a lot of our resources come with a specific profile of a story of somebody in San Antonio living this. This is a story here, but of a young woman who started an organization called For Her that helps women and single moms navigate the welfare system. 80% of single female parent households experience this reality, 80% in Bexar County. And so anyways, here is that story is helpful. Yes, thank you, Sam, for putting ALICE data. We use this ALICE data in our resources as well. And so they have other great data sets that you can pull from and learn from. But I think, anyways, that was our hope, is that employers see this just as much as folks who are in the nonprofit sector doing the work, right?
Seems to me it would be a great and very intentional move to go to like all the chambers, right? And especially because this video is so short, right? I love that. And but having this kind of short presentation at all of the chambers, I also think of like Rotary clubs, right? And going on that tour, and being able to share this and to talk about it. And then mentioning, of course, then the other 3 videos that are available and to them. That comes to mind. Yeah. And how that can be shared. But we all know within congregations, we've got all societal sectors in those congregations. So that's why congregations are such a great intersection for the work in this world that we're about. I'm going to hand it to Sam, but I'm going to take a quick pause. In the next couple weeks, we're going to get a little more granular, but we're going to be hearing an update of what's happening in terms of our elders and seniors in the city, and the same kind of gaps and different gaps that they're experiencing, as well as street medicine, clinics actually going out into the neighborhoods and into the streets. Makes me think too, in this particular video, how many congregations, some still do, but how many congregations could help by offering daycare? That used to be even more in congregations, but that could be a real spot in closing the gap, is to have some sort of daycare available. Be a great opportunity for intersection with the baby boomers that are retiring and the number of people there, grandparents. And so that's coming up. We're going to kind of go a little bit deeper into some of the granular sectors in our community. So Sam, you have a question?
Yeah, I just want to say there's a gentleman, Sebastian Striner, who works for United Way, and he does a great presentation on ALICE. We might want to invite him here to the intersection. He has a video that's much longer than this one that kind of tells the entire story. First time I saw ALICE few years ago, a couple of years ago, I think, because they had been working on it, the United Way. I was like, wow. And then it brought me back to 2017 when I started doing this work with San Antonio Fatherhood Campaign. And then I became a workforce ambassador. And then what I noticed is that when I was offering ladies and gentlemen better jobs and opportunities, they were saying, well, am I going to lose my $701? I'm like, what's $701? You know, and the thing is that, when I started working with, now that we work with the population that we work with, there's a lot of people being subsidized through all sorts of, TANF and SNAP and, WIC and all these other government, subsidy departments. And what happens is that when they do start making more money, they end up losing these benefits. And then even though they're making more money, they're actually worse off than they were when they were making less money. And that video said something that really, really stuck to my mind. It's a man-made problem. And now it can definitely be a man-made solution. Because the way I look at it, and I think so many people have said it over the years, sometimes it seems like, these things are set up to keep people in a certain position, in a certain, not being able to grow. Uh, Another thing too is like for me personally, right? When I started working for you for San Antonio Father Campaign, they started me off as part-time. I was part-time for a year and a half, and I was receiving what do you call that? Subsidized health care, starts with an E or something. What is it called? Can't remember the name of it. Anyway, I got a full-time job. So they hired me full-time, and I went back to them. I had another appointment. I said, "Oh, by the way, I got a full-time job," and they said, "Okay, we can't see you today. You make too much money." I'm like, "What?" I came over there to tell them, I'm making more. I got a job. So happy. Oh man, now you guys can help me. Can I get that thing? They're like, "No, you no longer qualify," and they just X me off just like that. And they told me to walk out the office. I'm like, "What?" So yeah, so I understand exactly what this is all about because it doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. And then I had to wait 2 years to get benefits for our company to get big enough to give us benefits. So yeah. So I've lived the story. So
Well, and one thing I feel like is so important for us in not just in salt, like helping be part of a solution to this vast problem, but also when Anne mentioned we do narrative change work. This is about also changing the narrative that we have about people who receive public benefits, who seem like we have wildly negative connotations for folks who receive long-term public benefits. But the way our system works is it is almost impossible for certain people to get out of needing those benefits, and are all even incentivized, that our government is incentivizing them to stay in a place where they need and require those benefits. And so I think, anyways, if we need to work hard at narrative change to help our larger city understand these are some of the hardest working people in our city. These people are working at least one job, if not multiple, and are making our city run.
So one thing we might do is, and I'm going to do it, is look to United Way coming and talking, going deeper into Alice. I saw that in chat, so that we can learn more there. I'm also like thinking in my head, it could be a wonderful opportunity for volunteer and contributing to the future for people who can go and do these presentations, work with HEB, but, focus on going to the chambers and connecting with them. That would be, an amazing contribution, right, to the greater good and changing the narrative, to multiply Elizabeths and other people to go and share and talk and be knowledgeable, right, on our behalf. So I invite people to use their imaginations and how they, can participate in furthering the work as well. Any other questions, thoughts, comments? It's good work. I'm grateful to HEB. One time I did a presentation there with, and this is the grocers, not the family foundation, but the grocers. And I'm trying to remember They don't call staff. There's another word.
Partners.
Partners. So everybody who works at HEB is a partner. Thank you. Great name, right? But the one line that I remember from being among so many people who worked at HEB was that, we stopped being a grocery store a long time ago. It's an anomaly, right? That if you think about it, HEB kind of the grocery store is an anomaly in our world, that not all states have that kind of family, community, large nature at more frequent than congregations. All of us go into HEBs, right? I've often had ideas, as Bill Neely can tell you, of things that we should have in HEBs for the community, like sacred kiosk. That's the thing. I've been on that one for a long time. But everybody in San Antonio goes into an HEB more often than our congregations or anywhere else. Food's at the bottom of that hierarchy, right? Adiba, you have your hand up.
Good morning. So a couple of questions, but as you were talking to about HEB real quick, one of the things that I have noticed is the what's available for us in HEB in different parts of the city, and that relates to good nutrition that impacts our health and mental well-being. It's not available in all parts of the city, but that's another whole other story. My question was about our income and I had no idea the gap at all. So that was a really good video. I had no idea there was such a huge gap in income, and being able to, and losing all these benefits. What is it that we can do? Like, I'm thinking policy, because for years and years, I thought about that. We encourage people almost to stay down because we are scared that if we make a little bit more, we lose so much. And I'm talking for years, just like for sure after I got out of the military, because my income dropped so much and I struggled, and I tried to apply for assistance, but then I lived with my parents for a while. So the whole process of there is no balance. If I make this much, I get some help. If I make a couple of dollars more, it's all gone. I was like, well, if I'm in the mindset, so well, I might as well just stay right here. What is it about the policy? Like, I know that companies can help and private businesses and that, but how do we change the whole process? Or has anyone done that? Or can I read about that somewhere where it's on a scale level that someone can sit down with me and say, okay, now you're making this much, then your benefits are going to be cut a little bit, instead of like Sam was saying, thank you very much, you're doing a great job, see you, check you off and leave you. Like, is there something about policies or whoever changes that we can do this? I don't know if that's been asked before or if there are any resources to learn about that.
Yeah, that is a wildly layered question. So there is no one right answer. There is a multitude and a constellation needed to repair something that has been pretty solidified against people who are experiencing income fragility in not just our country, but in our state, in the state of Texas specifically. We have not been hospitable to people who are poor, or and people who are working class, and as much as we might tout that we are, and we tout the strength of our economy that is upheld by folks that are doing some of the hardest labor in our state. So there's not any one right answer. But I think any effort that relieves the weight of families, whether it's through childcare subsidies, whether it's making sure that SNAP is not taken away from families, whether it's being able to, I mean, our social workers, many of them who do the work that you're describing in terms of working with families and individuals to me, they're experiencing this too. Like they're experiencing, some of them are experiencing this reality as well. And so there is this chronic stress that is on everybody. And so I think that there are so many solutions that we could dive into and just talk about one slice of the pie, whether it's childcare, whether it's single fathers, whether it's transportation. It's really hard to not have a car in this city, right? Like, I mean, and if you don't have your car, then you miss your shift. And if you miss your shift, you get fired, like all of those things. So it's so layered. But the one thing that I think is super interesting that I think would be very challenging in the state of Texas, but I find interesting is the effort for mayors that are supportive of direct income cash assistance. That we have found, and there's organizations like Up Together that was started in Oakland that have found that if you give families that are experiencing this gap just $500 a month for 3 years, they mobilize out. Hard stop. They mobilize out of this, and trusting them to know what to do with that cash. And so super interesting group Up Together. They do policy work and advocacy work in various cities and states across the country. I think Texas would be very, very hard to do that in, but they have worked with private funders to try to provide that too, as a way of making a case to policymakers for its benefit. But that's one group that's doing amazing policy work that I think is worth watching. Up Together.
Is anybody working with them locally? Do you know?
Yeah, so us and MHM and some other funders launched a pilot project. And it was supposed to go live in March of 2020. And so we pulled together a lot of cash, and we ended up just get it out to families. So we didn't create the pilot program that we had intended to, and we just got cash out to families. MHM is doing some good work around this. They're doing this kind of comprehensive longitudinal study, which unfortunately is like what some funders need to justify investing in this type of work, but where they have families that are receiving cash assistance, families who are receiving cash assistance and financial literacy classes, and families who are just receiving financial literacy classes, and kind of seeing over time what impacts these families that fit into that ALICE category are experiencing, and then going to share that data with the public. My hope is that when that comes out, and all these families opted in for those categories, saying that, we really don't need cash assistance. I just need some financial planning assistance. And so anyways, so that's going on, and I'm excited to see what comes from that. But we just ended our pilot program with Up Together this year that we had done for 1 year. But I am a believer that we need more than 1 year to show for that. Like families need more than 1 calendar year. They need at least 3, if not 5, to really help them make stepping stones out.
That's exciting. David, do we have time for one more comment or question?
Yes. You know what? That is such a fantastic program. And that's something that we modeled a program similar to that, but we started from just getting a base understanding of the financial dynamics within the family. And when you started to see the mothers and the fathers starting to progress, we stepped in where we've created a subsidized, and much like what you just spoke about with childcare, because that was one of the largest expenses that a lot of these families are experiencing. And what we've done is we've started to state that, hey, just like you said, and have that after school program where we go to the schools to pick up the child, their youth, and bring him back onto our campus, and then have a childcare till 7 p.m. that alleviated quite a bit of financial strains along with that. And then on top of that, we've started to do provide clothes. We would go to, you know, whether it has been Marshall or it has been Ross, where they have, you know, brand new clothes that they can donate to us, and even with, you know, the congregation that has been able to supply clothes. Then we partner with multitude of other organizations that provide, you know, fresh foods, and again, when we look at the financial situation of homes, you know, between, especially with that have youth in their homes, between childcare and food costs, those are some of the larger costs. And when you start to be in a position where you can alleviate those costs away from the family for a period of time, in this case, I heard Elizabeth, you know, talking about for 3 years giving them cash. Though, you know, our partners, we weren't able to do that. Just alleviating some of those, you know, line item bills that they do have on a monthly basis, it started to charge those, you know, families up to where they could spend more time with their families, to have more, you know, have a desire and the ambition to have upward mobility within their families. So just one little snippet that we've done at WeBridge, we started to see the uptick in at least 3-4 families that where it's been going up. So I'm glad to hear that on a larger policy scale that HEB is looking into this and sitting on the MHM's community council. That is something that we have been talking about, what Elizabeth is referencing with regards to providing a comprehensive study, needs assessment within the communities to see if this type of program can sustain itself. And so it's exciting. It's just, it's so much more of that need. You know, we need to amplify it, find a way to amplify those types of programs. But I think all of us being in a faith group or faith organizations within our campuses, I would say that that's something that we should take a look at, is how do we engage our seniors within the congregations to, you know, possibly be some of those care providers for the youth within the people that we serve. You know, that'll start to help out a lot. It's at least a model that we've started to do has been pretty fruitful thus far.
It reminds me, and then we're going to close, but it reminds me of 2 of the most significant learnings that we've all had in the last half a dozen years, that the initiatives that have the greatest impact, and so we can flip that because they're meeting the greatest need, right, are those initiatives that are in geographical proximity to the need and to others who are providing the same sort of needs, right? So the efforts working together in geographical proximity, and those needs that, the second part of that, are those needs that are at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy, right? Those are the initiatives in the work that have the greatest impact in community. And we keep doing that, you know, in the work at the intersection, in the work that all of us have been doing together. We just keep focusing more and more. It's almost like, what, Back to the Future, but remembering what congregations were about to begin with, where they are. And it's the only way that this geography that we have is going to move into the future, right? To be able to not just survive, but thrive. So I'm going to say goodbye now. Thank you for this amazing morning. And Elizabeth, thank you for doing the work that you're doing. And I'm just so glad that you get to wake up every morning to be that storyteller for us. You are in the right spot for all of us. So thank you. Thank you all. We'll see you next week at the intersection.
Thank you so much.
Bye.